Okay, so let me get back into talking about complex experimental designs. It's the second video for this. Um, I want to kind of illustrate this with another example that I have on the next slide to talk about, how interactions work just a little bit before we get, into the complex details here. Let's kind of recast these away from my attractiveness example here, and think about variable A as like the type of word somebody is trying to remember, maybe concrete words versus abstract words like I have on the next slide, and another variable of the memory method that they're using, either a sort of control method where they don't really get instructions, or something called the method of loci that maybe you kind of remember from introductory psych. So if we want to do a simple kind of memory experiment by crossing the types of words by the method people are remembering and trying to see how many words they remember, it might be the case that a particular memory strategy works better or worse depending on the type of word that you're using. And the only way that you would really be able to tell that is by crossing these different conditions together. So let me show you what I mean by that. And this kind of idealized data that deals with this, I have, like I mentioned, the type of word, concrete versus abstract words. Concrete, let's say, things that are very specific and, well, concrete, like tree, desk, star, earth. Very specific things that have a kind of physical, obvious meaning, and abstract words might be more like ephemeral, beautiful, stupid. Things that are not, tied to some specific concrete physical thing. So these things differ quite a bit, obviously, so there might be a reason to think that we might remember them differently. In particular, maybe we want to see if some specific type of memory device leads to different effects depending on the type of word. So, like I said in intro psych, maybe you remember talking about something called the method of loci. The method of loci is just a mnemonic device, basically, where you place items or ideas or words kind of on a path. So maybe you have a specific way that you tend to, drive to work or walk to school or something, and you know that route really well. And if you have, let's say, a grocery list that you weren't able to write down, it might be a useful thing to kind of metaphorically place those items along that route. So you kind of picture milk at the corner of Claiborne and Broadway. You picture eggs at the corner of Willow and Broadway. You picture rice at the corner of Plum and Broadway, and so on. You have like these landmarks that you kind of place things at. So, I mean, kind of seems like a lot of work in a modern era where we can just, record things very easily electronically. But, in early memory studies and stuff, people were very interested in the different ways that we can kind of manipulate memory. So maybe the method of loci works really well. Maybe it's better than just people trying to memorize lists of things. We would want to test that, right? But it might also be that it only works very well for particular types of words. So instead of just looking at the method of loci with one type of word, if you interact that with different types of words, then you can see when it is useful and when it is not. So, for example, if you cross them here, this is a typical pattern of results you might see if you did this kind of study, where some people have tried to remember concrete words using a control, not very many instructions way of memorizing things. Some people have tried to memorize abstract words using a control set of instructions, and then other people have used the method of loci for concrete words, and other people still have used the method of loci for abstract words. So these 4 separate conditions that are coming out from 2 independent variables, each with 2 conditions being fully crossed. So that 2 by 2 leading to 4 distinct conditions. Okay, so let me try to explain the utility of using all these conditions. So let's imagine for a second that you're a researcher studying memory and you want to see, does the method of loci work? So you might pick a set of words and use the method of loci in one condition and compare it to people not using the method of loci in another condition. So that might look something like this, that you have people using the method of loci here and people not using it and just getting no instructions or something here. For the method of loci, people are remembering 30 words or so. Not using the method of loci, they're only getting about 15 words, that they're doing half as well, basically. So if this was all the information that you had, you would say the method of loci is amazing and doubles the number of words that people remember. And that seems to be supported by your data here. However, if you had just by chance decided that you were going to use abstract words instead, and you only did this study, you might see that the method of loci here for abstract words is having people are remembering 17, 18 words, and for just a control method or a control memory strategy, they're only remembering about 12. So you're thinking that there's some difference here. It's there's something going on, but maybe it's not enormous. Maybe this really isn't a worthwhile method. So if you only did one of these parts of the study, you would have a really incomplete picture of how the method of loci works and if it's useful or not. But because you have done this entire 4-condition study, you can actually see that the type of word affects how useful the method of loci is. For abstract words, it doesn't really help us that much. There's not that big of a leap compared to concrete words where there's an enormous leap. And this makes sense, right? That this method of trying to remember words in specific physical locations works better for concrete words, which you can think of their physical constituents and put them in the actual place in your mind. You can think about milk and rice and whatever along your path. For abstract words, it's kind of hard to place intelligence and frugality and racism along a particular path, right? Those types of abstract words don't lend themselves as well to the method of loci. Interactions really help you figure out the whole picture. They tell you that the effect of a variable might depend on the level of another variable, that their effects are not uniform across all different sorts of circumstances. Okay, I'm going to stop this one here and then kind of move on to another example in the next video.